Hello there, my name is Margaret. I will be 60 years old in 2 months' time. I am the one you are looking at on your screen now. I am here to tell you how I use citrus, leafy greens like kale, and other simple foods to completely lower my terrible blood pressure or hypertension as some of us would call it, and now I'm living healthy. Just 6 months ago, I was sitting in my kitchen staring at my blood pressure monitor flashing 168/102 in angry red numbers. My doctor had warned me about stroke risk, about my arteries hardening, about my heart working too hard every single minute of every single day. I was terrified. I felt like my body was betraying me, like time was running out, like I had no control. But I made one small decision that morning that changed everything. I decided to change what I ate, starting with my breakfast. No pills at first, no extreme exercise programs I couldn't maintain, just food. Real, whole, colorful food that I could find at any grocery store. And it worked. Today my blood pressure is 128/82. My doctor is amazed and I feel 20 years younger. Before I share exactly what I did, step by step, meal by meal, I need you to do something for me. If this story resonates with you, if you or someone you love is struggling with high blood pressure, please hit that like button right now, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with anyone who needs to hear it. This information could save a life, maybe even yours. So please take 2 seconds and share this video. Your support helps me reach more people who desperately need this message. Now let me tell you my story. I remember the exact moment everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning in late spring, and sunlight was pouring through my kitchen window, painting everything gold. Under normal circumstances, it would have been beautiful, peaceful even. But I wasn't feeling peaceful. I was strapping a blood pressure cuff around my arm for the 3rd time that week, hoping somehow the numbers would be different, that maybe the previous readings were wrong, that my monitor was broken or needed new batteries or something, anything other than the truth. I pressed the button and waited as the cuff inflated, squeezing my arm tight, then slowly releasing. The machine beeped and displayed my reading. 168/102. My hand started shaking. This wasn't a fluke anymore. This was real. This was dangerous. I sat there at my kitchen table, that same table where I'd eaten thousands of meals over the years, where I'd shared coffee with friends, where I'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, and I felt utterly alone with my fear. My doctor's words kept replaying in my mind like a broken record. She'd been kind but firm during my last appointment. "Margaret," she'd said, looking me straight in the eyes, "if we don't get this under control soon, you're at serious risk. Stroke, heart attack, kidney damage. These aren't just possibilities, they're probabilities if you continue on this path." She'd wanted to start me on medication immediately, and I'd agreed, but the pills were giving me terrible side effects. Dizziness, fatigue, constant trips to the bathroom. I felt worse on the medication than I had before, and my numbers were still too high. That morning, sitting alone with those red numbers glowing at me, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be passive anymore. I wasn't going to just wait for the next doctor's appointment or the next medication adjustment. I was going to research, learn, and take action. I was going to fight for my health with everything I had. I opened my laptop right there at the kitchen table and started searching. How to lower blood pressure naturally. Foods that reduce hypertension. Lifestyle changes for heart health. I read for hours, taking notes, following links, diving deeper and deeper into research studies, medical articles, and success stories from people just like me. What I discovered both frightened and empowered me. High blood pressure was damaging my body every single day, every single hour, with every heartbeat. The force of blood pushing through my arteries was too strong, wearing them down, making them stiff and narrow, forcing my heart to work harder and harder just to do its job. Over time, this could lead to my arteries bursting in my brain, causing a stroke. Could cause my heart to enlarge and fail. Could damage my kidneys until they stopped working. It could steal my vision, my mobility, my independence, my life. But here's what gave me hope. The research showed clearly that lifestyle changes, particularly dietary changes, could make an enormous difference. Studies demonstrated that people who followed specific eating patterns could lower their blood pressure by 10, 15, even 20 points or more without medication. Exercise added more benefits. Weight loss helped. Stress management mattered. Every positive change I made would contribute to bringing those numbers down. I learned that sodium was one of my biggest enemies. For years, I'd been eating whatever I wanted without reading labels or thinking about salt content. My typical breakfast was toast with butter, scrambled eggs with cheese and bacon or sausage. Lunch was often a sandwich from the deli with processed meat, cheese and condiments, plus a bag of chips. Dinner might be frozen pizza, canned soup or takeout Chinese food. Snacks were crackers, cheese, pretzels, anything salty and crunchy. I was consuming somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 milligrams of sodium every single day, when I should have been aiming for 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams maximum. That excess sodium was making my body retain water, increasing the volume of blood my heart had to pump, raising the pressure inside my arteries. But it wasn't just about removing bad things. I needed to add good things too. I learned about potassium, a mineral that works like sodium's opposite, helping my body flush out excess salt and relax my blood vessel walls. I learned about magnesium, which helps regulate hundreds of processes in the body including blood pressure. I learned about nitrates found in leafy greens, which convert to nitric oxide in the body and help blood vessels dilate and relax. I learned about antioxidants in berries and citrus fruits that protect blood vessels from damage. I learned about fiber that helps control weight and improves overall cardiovascular health. The science was clear. Food could be medicine if I chose the right foods. That afternoon, I drove to the grocery store with a completely new perspective. I walked past the bakery section without stopping. I avoided the frozen food aisles where I usually stocked up on convenient meals. Instead, I went straight to the produce section and started filling my cart with things I'd rarely bought before. Bunches of kale so dark green they were almost blue. Bags of fresh spinach. Heads of Swiss chard with beautiful red stems. I picked up oranges, lemons, limes, and grapefruits, their bright colors almost glowing under the store lights. I added bananas, blueberries, strawberries, and a small container of blackberries. I selected sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, beets, carrots, celery, and bell peppers in every color. In the bulk section, I scooped out almonds, walnuts, and pumpkin seeds. I picked up dried beans, lentils, and brown rice. I chose fresh fish from the seafood counter and chicken breasts from the meat department. By the time I reached the checkout, my cart looked completely unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone else entirely. The next morning, Wednesday, I woke up with purpose. I walked into my kitchen and looked at my new groceries spread across the counter. I pulled out my old blender from the back of the cupboard, wiped off the dust and plugged it in. Then I started building my first green smoothie. I washed fresh spinach under cold running water, feeling the crisp leaves between my fingers. I tore them into smaller pieces and dropped them into the blender. Then I added a handful of kale, tough stems removed. I sliced an orange in half and squeezed the juice directly into the blender, watching the bright liquid pool at the bottom. I peeled a banana and broke it into chunks, adding those too. A handful of blueberries for antioxidants and a slight sweetness. A squeeze of fresh lemon juice for brightness. About half a cup of water to help everything blend smoothly. I secured the lid and pressed the button. The blender roared to life, and I watched as the greens and fruit spun together, gradually transforming from distinct ingredients into a thick, vibrant green liquid. When it was smooth, I poured it into a tall glass and stared at it for a moment. It looked nothing like anything I'd ever consumed for breakfast before. It was dark green, almost emerald, with tiny flecks of darker green throughout. I lifted it to my lips and took my first sip. The taste was strange, earthy, slightly bitter from the greens, but also bright and fresh from the citrus. It wasn't delicious in the way a chocolate milkshake is delicious, but it tasted alive, vital, like concentrated health in a glass. I drank it slowly, standing by my kitchen window and watching birds gather at the feeder outside. With each sip I breathed deeply, intentionally, feeling my shoulders drop and my jaw unclench. This was my first act of self-care. My first deliberate choice to nourish my body instead of just feeding my cravings. When I finished, I rinsed the glass and smiled. One meal down. One small victory. I could do this. For lunch that day, I made a huge salad. I chopped romaine lettuce, added shredded carrots, sliced cucumbers, cherry tomatoes cut in half, and a can of white beans that I'd rinsed thoroughly to remove excess sodium. I made a dressing from scratch using olive oil, lemon juice, a tiny bit of Dijon mustard, and fresh herbs from a plant on my windowsill. No store-bought dressing with its hidden sodium and sugar. Just simple, clean ingredients. I ate slowly, really tasting each component, noticing the crunch of the cucumbers, the sweetness of the tomatoes, the creamy texture of the beans. My body felt satisfied in a way it hadn't in years. Dinner was baked salmon, which I'd learned was one of the best foods for heart health because of its omega-3 fatty acids. I seasoned it simply with lemon slices, fresh dill, and just a tiny sprinkle of black pepper. No salt. Alongside the fish, I roasted sweet potato wedges tossed in a small amount of olive oil and rosemary, and I steamed broccoli that I finished with a squeeze of lemon and a sprinkle of garlic powder. The meal was colorful, vibrant, and when I sat down to eat it, I felt proud of myself. This was real food. This was fuel that would help my body heal. I won't lie to you. The first week was hard. Everything tasted bland compared to what I was used to. My taste buds had been conditioned over decades to expect high levels of salt, sugar, and fat in every meal. Without those intense flavors, food seemed boring, flat, disappointing. I missed the punch of salt on my French fries. I craved the richness of cheese melted over everything. I wanted the sweetness of desserts I'd given up. Several times I stood in front of my refrigerator, door open, wanting desperately to order pizza or drive through for a burger and fries. But I didn't. I stayed strong because every morning I checked my blood pressure, and I was starting to see tiny changes. Nothing dramatic, but the numbers were beginning to trend downward. 167/100. Then 164/98. Small victories that kept me going. Around day 10, something remarkable happened. I woke up and realized my hands didn't feel swollen anymore. For months, maybe even years, I'd struggled to remove my rings in the evening because my fingers would puff up. I'd attributed it to the heat, to getting older, to water retention from who knows what. But that morning my rings slid off easily, and when I looked at my hands they looked normal, not puffy or inflamed. I also noticed that the constant afternoon headaches I'd been having were gone. I'd been getting headaches almost every day around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, dull, throbbing pains that I'd blamed on stress or eye strain or needing new glasses. But they'd simply disappeared. My sleep was better too. I'd been waking up 3 or 4 times every night for years, sometimes with my heart racing, sometimes just restless and unable to settle. Now I was sleeping through the night more often, waking up feeling actually rested instead of exhausted. These small changes encouraged me to keep going, but I knew I needed to add movement to my routine as well. The research was clear that physical activity was crucial for lowering blood pressure. Even moderate exercise like walking could make a significant difference. So I started small. Every morning after my green smoothie, I put on comfortable walking shoes and stepped outside for a 15-minute walk around my neighborhood. Just 15 minutes. That's all I committed to at first because I knew if I set the bar too high, I'd fail and give up. Those first few walks were humbling. I got winded more easily than I expected. My legs felt heavy. My knees hurt a little. But I kept going, one foot in front of the other, breathing the fresh morning air, noticing my surroundings in ways I never had when I'd driven these same streets. After about a week, 15 minutes started feeling easy, so I added 5 more minutes. Then another 5. By the end of my first month, I was walking 45 minutes every single morning, and I genuinely looked forward to it. Walking became my meditation, my thinking time, my connection to my neighborhood and the changing seasons. And with every step, I knew I was lowering my blood pressure, strengthening my heart, improving my circulation. I also started paying attention to my stress levels. I'd spent most of my adult life as a worrier, always anxious about something, always carrying tension in my shoulders and jaw. I learned that chronic stress releases hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that raise blood pressure and keep it elevated. So I began practicing deep breathing exercises 3 times a day. Morning, afternoon, and evening, I would sit quietly for just 5 minutes and breathe deeply and slowly, counting to 4 on the inhale, holding for 4 counts, then exhaling for 6 counts. This simple practice activated what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of my nervous system responsible for rest and relaxation. It counteracted the stress response and actually lowered my blood pressure in real time. I also started keeping a gratitude journal. Every night before bed, I wrote down 3 things I was grateful for that day. They were usually small things. The taste of fresh strawberries, a kind word from a neighbor, the feeling of sunshine on my face during my morning walk, the way my cat curled up next to me on the couch. This practice shifted my focus from everything I was worried about to everything I had to appreciate. It didn't eliminate stress from my life, but it changed my relationship with stress. I became less reactive, more grounded, more able to handle challenges without my blood pressure spiking. By the end of my first month, I'd created a complete routine that supported healthy blood pressure. I was eating whole foods, emphasizing fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats. I was walking every morning. I was managing my stress through breathing and gratitude. I was sleeping better. I was drinking more water and less coffee. I'd eliminated processed foods almost entirely. And the results were starting to show not just in how I felt but in my blood pressure readings. I was consistently seeing numbers in the 150s over the low 90s. Still elevated, still not where I needed to be, but definitely moving in the right direction. Then came my first major setback and it almost derailed everything. It happened during week 5. My daughter invited me over for Sunday dinner, a family tradition we'd maintained for years. I walked into her house and was immediately hit with the smells of my old life. Lasagna baking in the oven, layers of pasta, ricotta, mozzarella, and meat sauce. Garlic bread glistening with butter and Parmesan. Caesar salad with creamy dressing. And sitting on the counter, cooling for dessert, was my absolute favorite chocolate cake, the one my daughter knew I loved more than anything. I stood in her kitchen and felt my resolve crumbling. I'd been so disciplined for a whole month. Surely one meal wouldn't hurt. Surely I could enjoy this time with my family without being so rigid and strict with myself. I told myself I'd have small portions, just a taste of everything. But the moment that first bite of lasagna hit my tongue, something inside me broke loose. The salt, the fat, the richness, the familiar comfort of foods I'd grown up eating, it was like a dam bursting. I had a full plate of lasagna, 2 pieces of garlic bread, a large helping of salad drowning in dressing, and when dessert came out I ate not 1 but 2 slices of that chocolate cake. I told myself I deserved it. I told myself I'd been so good. I told myself one meal didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But even as I ate, I felt a growing sense of dread in my stomach that had nothing to do with fullness. That night was miserable. I couldn't sleep because my heart was racing. I could feel it pounding in my chest, hear it whooshing in my ears. My head throbbed with a splitting headache. My ankles swelled so much that when I pressed my finger into the skin, it left a deep indentation that took several seconds to disappear. I lay in bed wide awake, furious with myself, scared of what I'd done, wondering if I'd undone all my progress in one foolish evening. The next morning I didn't want to check my blood pressure. I was terrified of what the numbers would say. But I forced myself to do it, sitting at my kitchen table with shaking hands as I strapped on the cuff. The machine beeped and displayed my reading. 154/96. I stared at those numbers and felt tears welling up in my eyes. Not as high as my original reading of 168/102, but significantly higher than where I'd been trending in the high 140s and low 150s. I jumped backward. All that discipline, all those green smoothies, all those walks, all that effort, and I'd sabotaged myself in one evening. I put my head down on the table and cried. Deep, frustrated, angry tears. What was the point of trying so hard if one meal could ruin everything? Maybe this was just who I was now. Maybe I couldn't change. Maybe I was destined to live with high blood pressure and all the risks that came with it. I sat there feeling sorry for myself for about an hour, and then something shifted. I remembered reading somewhere that setbacks were part of any journey, that what mattered wasn't perfection but persistence. Not never falling but always getting back up. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath and made myself a green smoothie. Extra kale this time. Extra spinach. An entire orange squeezed in for good measure. I drank it slowly, deliberately, reclaiming my commitment to my health with each sip. Then I put on my walking shoes and went for my morning walk. Even though I didn't feel like it, even though I was tired and discouraged. I walked for a full hour that morning, working through my feelings, forgiving myself, recommitting to the path I'd chosen. Over the next 3 days I was absolutely strict with my eating. No deviations, no exceptions, no treats. Green smoothie for breakfast. Big salad with beans for lunch. Fish or chicken with vegetables for dinner. Lots of water. Deep breathing exercises. Long walks. And slowly my blood pressure came back down. By day 4 I was back to 148/92. By day 7, I was at 145/90. The setback had been temporary, not permanent. I hadn't ruined everything. I just stumbled and then I'd gotten back up. This lesson was crucial for me because it taught me that this journey wasn't about being perfect. It was about being consistent most of the time and forgiving myself when I wasn't. Around week 6, I discovered something called the DASH diet, which stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. My doctor had mentioned it before, but I hadn't really looked into it seriously. Now I researched it thoroughly and realized I'd been intuitively following many of its principles already. The DASH diet emphasizes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, low-fat dairy, nuts, and seeds while limiting sodium, saturated fat, and added sugars. It's not a trendy diet or a quick fix, but an eating pattern backed by decades of research and proven to lower blood pressure as effectively as some medications. Studies showed that people following the DASH diet could lower their blood pressure by 8 to 14 points. I started being more intentional about following DASH principles. I made sure half my plate at every meal was fruits and vegetables. I ate whole grains like brown rice, quinoa, and whole wheat bread instead of white rice and white bread. I incorporated low-fat or fat-free dairy by adding plain Greek yogurt to my morning smoothie and having a small serving of cottage cheese as an afternoon snack. I ate fish at least twice a week, focusing on fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines for their omega-3 fatty acids. I snacked on unsalted nuts and seeds instead of chips and crackers. I continued to avoid processed foods and kept my sodium intake below 2,000 milligrams per day, usually closer to 1,500. My typical day of eating looked like this. Breakfast was my green smoothie with spinach, kale, banana, berries, Greek yogurt, and ground flaxseed. Mid-morning snack was an apple with a small handful of unsalted almonds. Lunch was a massive salad with mixed greens, chickpeas or black beans, every vegetable I could find in my refrigerator, and homemade dressing made from olive oil, lemon juice, and herbs. Afternoon snack was sliced vegetables like bell peppers, carrots, and celery with homemade hummus. Dinner was grilled salmon or baked chicken breast, a baked sweet potato or brown rice, and steamed or roasted vegetables seasoned with herbs, garlic, and lemon. If I was hungry in the evening, I'd have a small bowl of fresh berries or a few dates. Simple, clean, nourishing food that my body could use to heal itself. I also want to mention what happened with my weight because it's relevant. I wasn't trying to lose weight specifically. My entire focus was on lowering my blood pressure. But when you replace processed foods with whole foods, when you eliminate excess sodium and sugar, when you move your body every day, weight loss often happens naturally. Over 3 months, I lost 22 pounds. I didn't count calories. I didn't restrict portions of healthy foods. I ate when I was hungry and stopped when I was satisfied. The weight just came off because I was finally eating the way my body was designed to eat. Those 22 pounds made a significant difference in my blood pressure. Research shows that for every 2 pounds lost, blood pressure can drop by about 1 point. So that weight loss alone contributed about 11 points of improvement to my readings. By month 3, my morning routine had become completely automatic. I didn't have to think about making the green smoothie or going for my walk anymore. These weren't chores or disciplines I had to force myself to do. They were just part of who I was now, part of my identity, part of my daily rhythm. I woke up and made my smoothie the same way I used to wake up and make coffee. I put on my walking shoes and headed out the door the same way I used to turn on the television. The habits had become ingrained, woven into the fabric of my life. I was also noticing changes beyond just the numbers on my blood pressure monitor. My skin looked better, clearer, and more vibrant. My eyes were brighter. My hair, which had been thinning, seemed thicker. My nails were stronger. I had energy that I hadn't felt in over a decade. I could climb stairs without getting winded. I could carry groceries without needing to rest. I could play with my grandchildren without feeling exhausted after 15 minutes. My mood was better too. I felt more optimistic, more hopeful, more capable. The anxiety and worry that had plagued me for years had lessened significantly. I was sleeping soundly through the night, waking naturally without an alarm, feeling rested and ready for the day. My relationships improved as well. I had more patience with people. I was more present in conversations instead of being distracted by how tired or uncomfortable I felt. I accepted more invitations to social events because I felt good enough to participate. My daughter noticed the change and started asking me for recipes and advice. My neighbors commented that I seemed happier, lighter, more like my old self. And I was reclaiming parts of myself that I'd lost over the years to poor health, fatigue, and fear. Month 4 arrived and I had my follow-up appointment with my doctor. I was nervous driving to her office that morning. I'd been checking my blood pressure at home every day, and the readings had been consistently good, hovering around 135/85, but I wanted official confirmation. I wanted her to see what I'd accomplished. When the nurse called me back and took my blood pressure with their equipment, she looked at the reading, then looked at me, then looked at the reading again. She excused herself and came back with my doctor, who took my blood pressure again herself. They both smiled at me. The reading was 132/84. My doctor sat down and pulled up my chart on her computer, scrolling through my previous readings. "Margaret," she said, shaking her head in amazement, "this is incredible. You've dropped over 30 points on your systolic, and almost 20 points on your diastolic. This is the kind of improvement we hope to see with medication, and you've done it through lifestyle changes alone." She asked me detailed questions about what I'd been doing, taking notes as I explained my eating pattern, my exercise routine, my stress management techniques. She told me that if I could maintain these changes and get my numbers consistently below 130/80, we might be able to avoid blood pressure medication entirely. I left that appointment walking on air, feeling prouder of myself than I had in years. But I also knew the work wasn't finished. Getting my blood pressure down was one thing. Keeping it down was another. I'd read enough to know that high blood pressure is a chronic condition. I couldn't do this for 3 months, get my numbers down, then go back to eating pizza and sitting on the couch. This had to be a permanent lifestyle change, a new way of living that I could maintain for the rest of my life. That realization was both daunting and empowering. Daunting because it meant I couldn't go back to my old ways. Empowering because I now had tools and knowledge that would serve me for decades to come. I continued with my routine through months 5 and 6, refining and improving as I went. I learned to batch cook on Sundays, preparing large quantities of brown rice, quinoa, beans, and roasted vegetables that I could mix and match throughout the week. This made healthy eating more convenient and reduced the temptation to grab something quick and unhealthy when I was tired or busy. I experimented with new recipes, discovering that healthy food could actually be delicious and satisfying when prepared with the right herbs, spices, and techniques. I learned to make cauliflower rice, zucchini noodles, and other vegetable-based alternatives to high-carb foods. I discovered nutritional yeast, which added a cheesy flavor to dishes without actual cheese. I found that roasting vegetables brought out their natural sweetness and made them incredibly appealing. I also joined a local walking group that met 3 mornings a week. Being part of a community of people who valued health and fitness kept me motivated and accountable. We walked together, chatted about our lives, supported each other through challenges. Some of them were also managing health conditions like diabetes, high cholesterol, or arthritis. We learned from each other, shared recipes and tips, celebrated each other's victories. Having that social support made the journey less lonely and more enjoyable. 6 months after that terrible morning when I saw 168/102 on my monitor, I sat in my kitchen on another Tuesday morning, sunlight streaming through the same window. I strapped the blood pressure cuff around my arm, but this time I wasn't afraid. I pressed the button and waited calmly as the cuff inflated and deflated. The machine beeped. I looked at the screen. 128/82. I stared at those numbers for a long moment, letting them sink in. Normal blood pressure is considered anything below 120/80. I was so close, just 8 points away on the systolic reading. But more importantly, I was no longer in the dangerous zone. I was no longer at high risk for stroke or heart attack. I had taken control of my health and changed my future. I closed my eyes and felt tears sliding down my cheeks, but these were different tears than the ones I'd cried months earlier. These were tears of relief, of gratitude, of pride, of joy. I had done this. Not through some miracle cure or magic pill, but through daily choices, through discipline, through choosing my health over convenience again and again and again. Through green smoothies and morning walks and deep breaths and saying no to foods that didn't serve me. Through getting back up after setbacks and believing in my ability to change even when it seemed impossible. Let me tell you what my life looks like now. I wake up naturally around 6 in the morning, feeling rested and energized. I make my green smoothie, which I actually crave now and genuinely enjoy. I drink it while watching the sunrise through my kitchen window, practicing gratitude for another day. Another chance to take care of this miraculous body I've been given. I put on my walking shoes and head out for my morning walk, usually 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes with my walking group, sometimes alone with my thoughts and the birds and the changing sky. I come home and prepare a healthy breakfast, maybe steel-cut oatmeal with berries and nuts, or scrambled eggs with vegetables and whole grain toast. I spend my days doing things I love, feeling capable and strong. I garden, tending to the vegetables and herbs I now grow myself. I cook, experimenting with new healthy recipes and preparing meals that nourish my body. I volunteer at a local community center, teaching cooking classes to other people who want to improve their health through food. I spend quality time with my family and friends, fully present and engaged because I feel good. I'm not constantly tired anymore. I'm not worried about my health collapsing at any moment. I'm living instead of just existing. In the evenings, I prepare dinner, usually fish or chicken with lots of vegetables, and I eat slowly, savoring every bite, grateful for food that tastes good and makes me feel good. After dinner, I might read, work in my garden, or take another short walk. Before bed, I write in my gratitude journal and practice my deep breathing exercises. I sleep soundly through the night and wake up ready to do it all again. My blood pressure now consistently reads between 125 and 132/78 and 84. My doctor is thrilled and has told me that as long as I maintain these lifestyle changes, I likely won't need medication. My cholesterol has improved dramatically. My blood sugar is perfect. I've lost a total of 28 pounds and have maintained that weight loss. I'm stronger, more flexible, more energetic than I've been in 20 years. I feel like I've been given a second chance at life, and I'm not wasting it. If you're watching this and struggling with high blood pressure, I want you to know that you can do this too. You don't need expensive programs or fancy equipment or special foods that only exist in health food stores. You need fresh vegetables and fruits, whole grains, lean proteins, and the willingness to change your habits one small step at a time. You need to move your body regularly, even if it's just walking around your neighborhood. You need to manage your stress and prioritize sleep. You need to be patient with yourself and persistent even when it's hard. Start small. Don't try to change everything overnight because that's overwhelming and unsustainable. Start with one meal. Make yourself a green smoothie for breakfast tomorrow morning. Just try it. Spinach, kale, a banana, some berries, citrus juice, a little water. Blend it up and drink it. That's one healthy choice. Then make another healthy choice at lunch. Then another at dinner. String enough healthy choices together, and they become habits. String enough habits together, and they become your lifestyle. String enough days of healthy living together, and they become your life, a life where you're in control, where you feel good, where your body works with you instead of against you. I'm not special. I'm not unusually disciplined or motivated. I'm just a woman who got scared enough to change and stubborn enough to stick with it. If I can lower my blood pressure from 168/102 to 128/82 in 6 months at age 60, you can too, whatever your age, whatever your starting point. It's never too late to choose health. It's never too late to give your body what it needs. It's never too late to change your story. So please, if this video has helped you or inspired you or given you hope, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss future videos about health and healing, and most importantly, share this video with anyone you know who's struggling with high blood pressure. Leave a comment below and let me know if you're going to try making a green smoothie tomorrow morning. Tell me what your biggest challenge is with managing your blood pressure. Let's build a community of people supporting each other on this journey to better health. I close my day now the same way I started it, with gratitude. Gratitude for my body that works so hard to keep me alive every single day. Gratitude for the knowledge that empowered me to heal myself. Gratitude for the discipline that carried me through difficult moments. Gratitude for the second chance I've been given. Every evening now, I step out into my garden, walking slowly among the leafy greens I grow, the kale and spinach and Swiss chard, past the lemon and orange trees I planted in large containers. The setting sun paints everything in soft gold light. I breathe deeply, feeling my strong, steady heartbeat, feeling the blood flowing smoothly through healthy, flexible arteries, feeling alive and well and hopeful. This is my new normal. This is the life I chose. And it's beautiful. Thank you for watching my story. Now go write yours.